Marcus Holloway wasn't a paranormal investigator. He wasn't a thrill seeker. He repaired communication towers for a living. Practical, skeptical, the kind of person who always had an explanation. Which was why he volunteered when the city hired a contractor to inspect the hospital's old electrical systems before demolition. One final survey, a few hours inside, nothing more. At least, that's what he thought. Marcus moved carefully through the first floor. Dust coated every surface. Wheelchairs sat abandoned in hallways. Patient charts littered the floor like dead leaves. Everything felt frozen, preserved, waiting. Then he noticed something strange. Every hallway map had one section scratched out. A black marker crossed through the same words every time. Ward 7. Not faded, not old, recent. As if someone had gone through the building years after closure and deliberately erased every reference to it. Marcus laughed nervously, then continued deeper. Mark's work radio crackled. Static filled the speaker. Then, a voice. Faint. Mark froze. The voice sounded close. Too close. As if someone stood directly behind him. He spun around. Nobody. The radio crackled again. The transmission ended. Mark checked the device. No signal, no active channel. The radio wasn't connected to anything. Yet the voice had sounded real. Human. Scared. Following hospital maps, Mark eventually discovered the records office. Most files were destroyed, but one cabinet remained open. Its label read, Ward 7. The lock had already been broken recently. Mark pulled the drawer open. Inside were patient reports. Most were heavily redacted. Names blacked out, dates removed, entire pages missing. But one report remained intact. Patient number 217, admitted for auditory hallucinations, repeatedly claimed he could hear voices coming from empty rooms. Doctors diagnosed severe psychosis. Then something strange happened. Every staff member assigned to him began reporting identical symptoms. Nurses, doctors, orderlies. All hearing the same voice, calling from somewhere inside Ward 7. A voice asking for help. Mark headed for the upper floors. The elevator shouldn't have worked. The building had no power. Yet its doors stood open, waiting. The interior light glowed weakly, buzzing. Mark stared at it. Every instinct told him to take the stairs. Instead, he stepped inside. The doors closed immediately. The elevator began moving. Up, without power, without sound, without explanation. Floor numbers flickered. 3, 4, 5. Then a number Mark hadn't seen on any building plans. 7, the elevator stopped. The doors opened. The air felt different, heavier, like entering deep water. Patient room doors lined both sides. Every room was empty. Every bed untouched. Every monitor dark. Yet Mark couldn't shake the feeling that someone stood just outside his vision. Watching, waiting. Then he heard it. A voice. Soft whispering from room 714. Mark pushed open the door. The room was empty, except for a telephone sitting on a bedside table. The phone was ringing. Slowly. Deliberately. One ring, pause, another ring. Mark hesitated, then answered. Silence, then breathing. Slow, wet, close, very close. A voice emerged. Mark nearly dropped the receiver. Who's there? A pause. Then, the line disconnected. The room suddenly changed. Not physically, but subtly. Patient charts appeared on walls. Fresh, new, machines hummed, lights flickered overhead. The abandoned hospital vanished. For a moment, Ward 7 looked operational, occupied, alive. Then Mark saw the patients, standing silently in doorways, dozens of them, motionless, watching him, their faces expressionless. Their eyes fixed on him. None blinked. None moved. The voice returned, this time from everywhere. The patients slowly turned their heads toward room 714, as if obeying something, someone. Inside, Mark ran. Footsteps echoed behind him. Not one set, hundreds. The sound of patients rushing through hallways, Doors slamming, voices whispering, calling his name. He reached the elevator. The doors were closed. The button wouldn't work. The hallway behind him filled with figures emerging from darkness, standing silently, watching. Then all of them spoke together. "Answer the phone!" The ringing began again. Louder, louder, deafening. Mark covered his ears, but the ringing wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside his head. The elevator door suddenly opened. Mark jumped inside. The elevator dropped. Fast, far too fast, as if falling. Then, impact. The doors opened. First floor, lobby, silence. The hospital stood abandoned again. Empty. Mark ran outside into the storm and never looked back. Months later, demolition crews finally entered the hospital. Ward 7 wasn't found. Not because it was empty, because it didn't exist. No blueprints, no permits, no construction records. No 7th ward had ever been built. According to every official document, the hospital only had 6 wards. Investigators assumed Mark had become disoriented, confused, lost, until workers discovered something hidden behind a sealed wall near the elevator shaft. A room, small, forgotten. Inside sat an old hospital telephone, disconnected, covered in decades of dust. Beside it lay a patient file. Patient number 217. The admission date matched hospital records. The discharge date was blank. The patient name was listed as Mark Holloway. The file was dated 22 years before he was born. But according to one worker, the phone rang exactly once before it was taken away. When he answered, he heard a frightened man whisper, "Please don't let Ward 7 answer."